Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Roll Call. I have with me Justin Chopin, attorney extraordinaire, proudly based out of New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes.
He currently owns and runs a 12 lawyer firm out of New Orleans with an emphasis on personal injury rights. And again, has a growing firm. And I'm excited to chat here with Justin. We met through a mutual friend. And I know the last time we chatted, we had a damn good time together. So everyone, I'm here. Justin's here. Everyone's accounted for. Let's start the roll call.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I got to tell you, I like your intro better than my intro. Now I got to go reach out to my people to be like, hey, why is John, look at his intro. That's way cooler than mine.
Well,
I'm a work in progress,
Yeah. We have the same people doing the work, I think, probably.
Right, I wasn't going to say that out loud, but yeah, I was going to, That's I had to laugh because they were like, hey, give John a one sheet. And I'm new to this side of the business. And, my first reaction is like, what the fuck's a one sheet? And then I remembered, and then they sent it to me and it was great. Like I read it and I was like, hey babe, come read my one sheet.
Dude.
It's just not correct, but it's all really, they're like, has argued cases in front of the United States Supreme Court. And I was like, no, you can't tell other people that. That's not true. That's ridiculous. There's like 6 guys right now that have ever done that, but there's all the same people every time. I was like, that's not me. And they're like, fine, like Fortune 500 CEO. And I was like, well, that's not correct either. I don't know, where are you getting this shit from? I think that, I was going to tell you, my one sheet's a whole lot more exciting than like the reality.
I heard that, man. Yeah, start Googling. Yeah.
Right.
So you're not the basis of all the characters for John Grisham's books?
Exactly. Right.
I assume so.
I'm not. Yeah, I haven't done. In fact, I can't even answer criminal law questions. And so, of course, you've been on my podcast and we do this and everyone's always, because those are juicy topics people always want to talk about. And it's what makes headlines. Very rarely is like, Bill Smith and his estate sued a trucking company today. Right. Like, no, like that's not exciting. And so people always want to know about like criminal stuff. And I really don't have an answer at all. I have no idea. I was like, I don't, you guilty? No, I don't know. So I can't even like tell good stories, they're like, or sometimes they'll be like, what's the most exciting case you've ever worked on? And I was like, well, I do civil law. And so they're like, they're not exciting. If they are like particularly interesting, it would either be that they're not interesting to regular people, or more likely they're like horrible, horrible cases that we can't talk about, like child abuse and like, false imprisonment and, or like suicides on a platform, like horrible things. Or like, well, it was really exciting because very rarely do we get to have cases about death happening in that fashion, right? So
yeah, someone hurts. If you're involved, someone's been hurt in some form or fashion, so it's not cool.
Right. Yeah. Like we talk about it in a really crude way because like lawyers are like doctors. Like, what's a leg worth? What's an arm worth? Like how much can I get for like 1 finger or 3? But like to regular people, they're like, oh my God, you're like a total son of a bitch. How could you even say this? So we find it best to be like, oh, we're just boring. Don't worry about it. We're just boring things.
Well, awesome. Well, I take us through your journey of how, because we were just talking before this, right? Some people forget that a law firm is a business.
Yeah.
And, an attorney is an attorney practicing law. But when you get a bunch of them together and they're practicing law together under the same roof, business happens, there's money flowing, there's issues that happen. You got to follow process. You got, complications start happening. So you're now an entrepreneur. I don't know if you ever identify with such an ugly word or not, but that's right. That's what you are when you're building.
I now identify. I used to be a lawyer, but I identify as a business owner. you know, as you know, the kids would say. But I
They have
mean,
meetings for that.
so what's that?
Yeah, they have meetings for that, like AA. Yeah,
Right.
or Justin, I'm a business owner. Yeah.
But so yeah, you know, the practice of law is interesting because there's a lot of different ways to be a lawyer. Right. Of course, we know that you can like work in the court system or you can work for big firms. Sure. But like just as a lawyer, it's a lot like being a doctor in a lot of ways where you could be just a guy in the country out there and then people in the community will walk in and you'll say, well, you know, hey, Bill, like what's going on? What hurts? And we're like, well, doc, you know, this thing happened. Right. So you can be a lawyer like that. And when I first started the practice, like many, you know, who do what I do, like that's kind of just how it starts. Like it starts with like an idea, like an experiment. Like I think I could do this. I've been practicing, you know, defense work for almost 10 years, and I just didn't like it. It was boring, stupid. And especially on the commercial side, where like two companies are suing each other over just inane bullshit. I'm like, oh my God, who cares? You know? And so I had this idea, like many business owners, like what if I actually could do it? You know, and what if I could do it better than the people that I know that are out there that I don't think do that great of a job. And so that's how it starts. And so you start like that kind of country doc that's like, well, I'll just put up a sign that says for business. And that's, but then there becomes a time. So first I had like another lawyer join me, and then we were just like country lawyers, right? And then I had a third lawyer join me, and now we're just like, now we're like three dudes practicing law, right?
High five.
Right. We have a little bit better budget than we did the year before. We're doing three times what I used to do when it was just me. And maybe there's some profit there. And then a fourth comes along. About that time is when there were these other things started happening. And so when it was just me, my big deal was like, well, I don't need a secretary. I don't need a receptionist. You know, these guys are just fat and lazy. We don't need these things. And then we got busy, and I was sitting on the couch one night and I was just kind of bitching to my wife. I was like, I feel like I just live at the copier. That's like all I do. I just live at the copy machine, scanning things in because we're paperless. But in order to be paperless in a paper world, that means you got a lot of paper that you have to digitize. Yeah. And she's like, hey, you idiot. Like, why don't you hire somebody? And I said, well, I don't think I can afford to. And she says, well, I don't think you can afford not to. You're the highest paid secretary I've ever heard of.
Brilliant lady.
Yeah. She's a lawyer. So, you know, she gets to bust my chops. And so, so then it was like three dudes practicing law and a paralegal. Then it's four guys. So right around that time, we kind of got used to this, like, oh, now we have a support system. We need more of that. I want some more of that. And then administration became kind of, you know, like a burden of sorts. And I was really at a crossroads, and I was talking to my CPA, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I go out and hire all these people to do this work that I'm doing, or do I stop practicing law? And he said, it was the first time I'd ever heard these words. And you're in business. So like, this is not foreign to you. But at that time, as just like a practitioner, this was very foreign to me. And he says, well, Justin, I don't know about you. Is that you can either work in the business or you can work on the business. Preferably, I'd rather work on the business. I don't have a business degree. I had a psychology degree and like a philosophy degree and a law degree. And so that was like a moment where I remember sitting there and being like, wow, like, you know, like a idiot stoned kid, like, oh, wow. You know, and it was that moment where I moved into being a country kind of lawyer to being something else, something in between, more of like an operations director, you know, and then I just gave up my book, you know, so I just handed we hired a fifth lawyer. And then I just gave all my cases to him and cleaned off my docket. Time progresses, and we go from, you know, 5 to 6 to 8. Around that time, we started revenue, we kind of tripled in size. When we tripled in size is when I went from being like an operations director to kind of something, I don't know what the hell I am now. I just, like if I wanted to like be really fancy, I would say like, oh, I'm a CEO. But I'm a lawyer, so I would never say that because it's stupid. But, but I became a business owner, and now we have 12 lawyers and I have a director of operations that oversees the operations because now I can't even do that, right? We have multiple bookkeepers and we got an intake department and a marketing, people. And so now, I'm in this weird sort of upper management, of where I kind of CEO visionary, I guess, I'm not comfortable just like using titles like that because I think it's a little, I don't know, self-aggrandizing, but yeah. And so that's sort of the journey. And I think like a lot of lawyers that grow in, into something more, I think they have a very similar progression. I think the key is that each lawyer, whether he or she realizes it or not, will have the moment where they decide I can either hire operations people and focus on the practice, or I can hire lawyers and focus on the operations. I happen to choose the latter, and they're both fine. Like there's some people out there who are like, no, I hate all that shit. I just want to practice law. But I get excited about it. I love it, and I love what we do. I love the lawyers I work with. I don't mind the HR problems. I think they're hilarious sometimes. You can't make everybody happy. And if you try to make everybody happy, you end up pissing everybody off. And so yeah, that's how it happens. You eventually just get to a size where you just got to make a decision. Like, what do you want to be? And there's no wrong answer.
Yeah. How long ago was that when you made that decision?
So it was before COVID was when I'd had that conversation with my CPA. And so it was about 2019 when it was like the end of the year of 2019 where I kind of scrubbed my docket. I had like a few little hanger on kind of things where it's like, I'm not going to get rid of Bill. Like Bill's like, Justin, been my lawyer forever. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll close out your case. But then as they closed out by 2020, there wasn't anything left. By 2021, I was certainly not doing it. And then, 22 was a big year for the firm. 23 was a big growth year where we really sort of, between 23 and 24, we tripled in size and revenue. And so that's when that transition really started because, but historically we were always understaffed, right? Because at the core of the business was me sitting on my couch in 2017 complaining to my wife, like, I can't afford to hire staff. So that never truly, like, that's at my core who I am, right? And so a lot of the journey has been getting myself out of the way and being able to internalize, like, okay, where are the issues and what are they? And most of the time, it's you. Like, you're the problem. You're like Taylor Swift. Like, you're the problem. Everyone agrees.
Yeah, and people just they're scared to tell you at first until they're frustrated enough, then they'll certainly let you know.
Now they love to tell you. Once you say it out loud, they think it's the best. They're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, you're the problem. All right, have a good day. They'll just come on by and bitch at me for something. But they are, so a lot of times, one of the things we've learned too, when you have somebody that you're really not happy with their performance, and you have to do this exercise of, is this a people person? Like a people problem, I should say. Like, is this a problem with the people? Or is this a problem with the process? Is this an underperforming team member? Or have we not set expectations of what we think how work should be done? Or have we not given sufficient guidance as to how this should be done? Or does this person have a support, like a capacity issue? Are they just, and so for a very long time, we were always like, oh, you're an underperformer. You're an underperformer. Well, everybody was just treading water, and the water was right here under their nostrils. And I just kept putting more and more paper on top of their head while they slowly sank down. And so, that's another part of that journey is, when we identify the problems, you realize at the core, you're the issue, but then, okay, fine. But like, what is it that you're doing? You're not having sufficient SOPs. You're not holding people accountable with KPIs. You're not giving people an opportunity to succeed because you're giving them more work than is realistically feasible. And once you break all that up, you can start seeing real growth, and then people will really take off, and you get so surprised. You're like, oh wow, I always thought you were kind of like blah, but you're not. You're fabulous. All right, great. It was me.
Yeah, man, I really hated you.
Right.
What's going on? Right. How, because again, when we talk, I framed it as, okay, law of practices feels different, or maybe people don't see it different as business. There still isn't generally a manual when you step into something like this, no matter what the business is, right? Many of the things that you described about how you got to where you were are like 98% of the businesses that are started up, right? The one person that has the idea starts working their ass off, starts getting better at it, starts getting more clients, and starts hiring, and then starts doing this. So most of us learn business by falling down, by getting up, by reading books, by talking to people, blah, 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 blah. What has been the best thing for you to cling on to learn this world of business?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because you're right. I don't have a business degree, and much like if I use the doctor analogy, just because people are just like, people understand doctors more than they do lawyers. And so I know they're more approachable, but I mean, much like the doctor, like the moment you get that MD and you walk across the stage, like you're a doctor, baby. And lawyers, it's even worse, because, there are very few things that we specialize in, and it's very state specific, right? You can specialize in tax or things like that, but I mean, we're not hyper specialized, and so with few exceptions. So when I walk across that stage, man, I'm a lawyer, and that means I can go out there and I could tell anybody I just say that you do things you've never even done before. You have no idea how to do it. I think the only exception would be like, I can't defend someone on death row. Right. Like for capital murder. I mean, so like, that's like the literal only exception I can think of where you're not allowed. But so right. So I don't know anything about this. So a lot of trial and error, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of time spent thinking critically about this. I made a lot of bad mistakes. I signed contracts I had no business signing. I was rushing. I'm the worst because I'm a lawyer. So you hold me to a higher standard. You shouldn't. Like, I don't ever read a contract. Are you crazy? So, and so a lot of mistakes where I'm like, well, I'll never do that again. Especially with like these software engineer vultures that, sell you on a product and then lock you in on a contract. So it was a lot of that. And then when we start talking about like marketing and things where I do spend a lot of my time, that's just a slow sort of steady growth where you learn a little bit at a time. I was fortunate in that, when I started, I did have an idea, because back 10 years ago, not everybody used the internet. They did. They did. Like, you see, have a viewer, they're like, "What are you, fucking stupid? Everyone's on the internet." 10 years ago, people didn't search the way that they search now. And I, so you, or maybe it's more than, 10, 12 years ago, you might, but if you were looking for a lawyer, you may not Google like personal injury lawyer near me, or people were starting to do it. And so when I started with digital advertising, because I felt very confident that was going to work, and it was going to be, the way. And so I kind of got in a good time, and I started like 3 years earlier. I think I really would have, taken off. I was really kind of at the tail end where people were just starting to kind of move in that direction. And so a lot of this is learned a little bit at a time, but for a very long time, I would describe it to the other lawyers here when everybody would come to me looking for answers. And I was like, guys, I don't know the answer. Or they'll be like, well, what are you going to do next? Like, what's the next thing? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know? And so I'd say, like, well, guys, I mean, I'm just like you. One of the lawyers, I was like, we were in law school together. We were roommates. You know, I don't know the answer to this shit, And so I was like, you don't understand. I'm all alone on an island. You're practicing law. So you're in this huge community. You're in this huge sea of lawyers where the resources are abundant. The connections are like neurons in the brain. There are millions of connections out there. And if you need help practicing law, that's easy. But here, as being a law firm owner, how many law firm owners do you even know? And so I can't just go call my competitor and say, hey, Bill, like, what are you doing? Because he either isn't going to tell me, or if he did, would you even trust the advice that he gives you?
Right.
So because you're competitors, right? And so I joined a marketing company that has like coaching, and that really kind of carried me through for a lot of this journey, because I don't know, and a lot of times that's hard too, right? Being able to say out loud, like, I, Justin Chopin, solemnly swear, like, I know nothing about business. I make bad business decisions. Some of which I'm still today trying to get work myself through, where I brokered bad deals because I didn't know any better. But here, I'm in this coaching group, and I get to collaborate with other law firm owners that are outside of my jurisdiction. And so we're not competitors. So I can be very candid. I can be like, well, what do you pay? And how much do that do they get? And what's your profit on that? And was it better to do this or do this? Or have you ever tried? And we could just be very honest and candid, and everyone understands it's all confidential. And, and then I have a sort of, so coaches. So anybody who's out there who's like, feels like they're sort of just like on this listless ship at night without a compass, or whatever cool metaphor you want to use, like, the deserted island's my metaphor. Go get your own. I'd say, you're going to have to get out of your office, and get out there and find a group of people where you can have these conversations with, or you're going to do it like I did for the first half. I used to say I was 50-50 on decisions. And that's not bad either. So if you're 50-50 and each time you screw up, you fix it, and that fixes 50-50, eventually you will find your way moving forward. It's just going to take you a really long time. You're going to be treading water for a while. You're like a squirrel climbing a tree, right? So every 3 feet, you're dropping one. But that's okay too. That's part of the journey.
No, absolutely. And I want to go back to even, back to where you're like, hey, I didn't go to business school. I am living proof that business school, and I firmly believe most college, right, is not, it doesn't make you that. It doesn't, when I was in college, I don't know about you, I was there to have fun, get a degree. I might not have been in the mode to learn for life. I firmly believe that in the world, the real world is where you actually become the degree, right? So business happened to me. Again, I have my MBA also, right? I got great stuff on my wall that show me where I went to school, but I don't really practically put anything to use. I probably learned a lot of things I do today, but I didn't actually put it into use. So, that
I learned how many beers you can drink in succession before failure, right? So like in physics, there's like a breaking principle, how far you can bend something until it breaks, that point of fracture. Like I learned that I can drink 2 16-ounce Guinnesses back to back and still be okay. But that a third, I was not okay. And then I had about a 4-hour window before I threw up. No, I mean, look, I agree with you. I mean, college is great. Like I had the best time in college, I shotgunning beers on the rugby pitch and learning. I learned a ton. It's just that what I learned doesn't apply to this world I live in necessarily, maybe foundationally, but not practically.
Right. And, in tying in a few other things that you went, right. I mean, I think that, here I am post 40, almost exactly midway 40 here in a few weeks, midway between 40 and 50. Do the math.
Right.
I'm just figuring out, hey, this is what I'm finding what I want.
40, right. I'm that many, what did they say? I'm that many years old.
Like this many. Yeah. Almost this many past 40. And And how the hell do you know what you want to do as an 18-year-old, as a 21-year-old, like really, really know what you want to do? So you go into what is thought you should do or what felt right or what you made. And what I love about stories like yours and others is you got into the right practice that led you to maybe uncovering your greatness, which is, hey, that business side of things, I really love doing it, right? You're not shoehorned into being, I have a number of friends that are partners in law firms and they're just exhausted, right? I mean, they're partners, big firm, and I couldn't quite press them to get them to tell me they love their life, right? It's like, hey, I'm into this already. I got this big house. I got this membership. I got all this stuff.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. And yet there's other guys that love that grind. Like, dude, I work 80 hours a week and it's the greatest thing because I'm working on M&A. I'm doing all this stuff. Sure. But stepping into and finding, and having the courage to step into, like when your CPA came to you and said, well, you can either work in it, work on it. Like, well, I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't know what the hell you just said. So I'm going to go continue doing what I'm doing. Right. You just make a choice. And at that moment you said, I have an opportunity to do something different.
Yeah.
And you have the courage to do it.
Well, so I will say this, it's scary, putting yourself out there. I did have the unique position that I had already made like the scariest choice ever. That was like, I'm gonna not have like a comfortable 6-figure income because I'm gonna open this business and I'm gonna go months, longer than months, a couple of years without making a nickel, right? Because I was always building. I always knew I wanted to build, and I still do it to this day. I will starve myself all day long to feed the law firm. Like I'm very fortunate. So my wife's a lawyer, so our personal position is that we can do this. And so she supports not just emotionally, but in a lot of ways, we always joke that she'll buy the broccoli and I'll buy the house, right? And so, because who knows when I'm going to get paid? I'm the last one to find out. But so I had already made such a huge decision that in a lot of ways paled in comparison. And so, but don't think I wasn't like, oh man. And still to this day, I always say like, I'm always like terrified. Everybody around here is like, screw this. We're going to stop practicing law. I'll be like, oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. It's been years since I've taken a deposition or, having to do that. I can do it. I've taken more than I can even count, but I like doing this so much more. And so every day is always like is it all going to fall apart today? Is today the day? I think today's supposed to be rapture. That's what I saw in the news this morning. They're like, listen, I just thought you should know today's like the end of the world.
This is it. So, we better get a podcast in.
I know. I was like, we're gonna fit this in. It's gonna air before the end of the world. So, but yeah. So it was kind of it wasn't a hard decision for me to make. It was the advice I needed to hear at the time I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
A hard decision was starting the law firm. But in a lot of ways, I was so enthralled with the business side that I sort of gladly gave up the docket because you know what else? I also noticed something else. I noticed that my clients were actually not getting the best service anymore because their cases were stagnant. Because how could I possibly have the time to work on their cases when I'm getting like 10 people lining up in my doorway to ask me questions about their cases and how I thought I should. And I still do that to this day. Like I strategize with lawyers all day long. So it's like, even though I'm not the one actually doing it, trust me, I'm involved in it, right? Even if I don't want to be. And so that helped the decision too, because I was almost a little ashamed that like, oh, my client's case is still just sitting here and they've been trusting me with this and it's not going anywhere. Firm's going great, but your case kind of sucks. So in a lot of ways, I was actually really happy to make the move. But again, that's just one of those decisions everybody's got to make for themselves. In this marketing group where I collaborate with all these other lawyers, there are tons of guys there who do the opposite. They're like, well, we hire marketing people and directors and operations people just so that I can sit and focus on my practice because that's what I like to do. this is just what I like to do. I'm like, I love it, you know?
Well, and I want to bring up a couple things here too, because that you brought up, and this is my podcast, so I'm going to bring up. I'm a leadership team coach, so I want to talk about how great coaches should be. No, but you brought up a few different things about you got where you got, and I'm bringing the point back around from college and all that stuff that's relevant, but having the right people in place to help you, right? Your CPA, trusted advisor. Really, really, again, you owe some things to that person by opening your eyes there. And then this marketing group, right? It's you can't do it all yourself. Right. And that's where I do find a lot of, again, very bright people, whether it be doctors, whether it be lawyers or engineers. They think they can do it themselves because they're brilliant and they've always done it all really well. They don't do many things not well. And so they're like, hey, I can go figure this out. And you can, but it might, like you said, it might take you quite a bit longer. But then getting the right people around you, right? The marketing group that helps you think differently. And you also said earlier, it's a lonely at the top. So whether you have like a leadership group, like a Vistage or an entrepreneurial organization, something along those lines is another confidential place, because man, it is lonely. I remember being there too. Like, even though I had a business partner and I go to him and he doesn't know any different or better than I do. Right. I have a leg up maybe on him, but shit, what the hell is he going to tell me? I don't know. Right. Somebody out there can help me uncover some of my own things that I'm trying to figure out. Right.
It is kind of lonely sometimes. And even the people that you associate with and your most trusted people, the relationship's still different, right? So we were talking about this not that long ago, somewhat similar, but how you discuss money with the firm. And everybody had an opinion on how you should talk about firm finances. And I was like, well, I have a very different opinion, but I feel like you guys need to hear it. I never discuss finances in the firm. And the reason is you can't freaking win. If you tell them your revenue is really high and everything's great, then they're going to be like, well, what the hell? Why I want to make more money. Like, why the hell am I only making this? If you tell them revenue is high, but profits are low, and the profit margin on a car accident is not what you think it is, and we're on a shoestring budget, they'll be like, oh my God, we're not solvent. We're going to go running for the hills. And I was like, you can't fucking win. So I don't even talk about it. It's, every now and then I'll drop hints just when I hear someone say things, I often tell them, like, look, we cost the same every month, whether you settle cases or not. Right. So, it costs us about $500,000 right now, like every month to operate a law firm. So if you're not settling cases, I don't know how many $500,000 you got stocked away around here, but most people only have so many of those. So I'll drop little cues as a way of reminding them that's like, hey, we're running a big business, but you really can't. And so, but it's a very similar concept, right? So at the top, right, the relationship's different. So even the ones you really trust, at the end of the day, they're relying on me to get the work in the door, to give them the support they need, to settle the case or try the case or what have you, and then pay them for the work that they do. And so when you have that relationship, you always have to be very mindful that it's like you are sort of, you are the officer to the enlisted men sometimes. And even though they're very trusted, like these guys have the most stripes, these are your most trusted NCOs, but still the relationship's like a little bit different. And so you just have to deal with the loneliness sometimes, which is why I say you get a coach, because it's just too hard to do it all by yourself. Yeah, I think, thanks for that plug. Yeah. We'll make sure we cut that one out and, do a little special social media. 3 more. If I could do like 3 takes, right? And so you could like pick the one that's best. Like, get a coach. Get a coach, dummy. Otherwise, you know what else happens when you don't? So you've got nobody to soundboard things off of. Yeah. And then here's what I've learned over the years through making all the mistakes I've made. If you continue to soundboard off people who work for you, you start looking flippant or impetuous, or like you don't know what's going on, or you said you were going to do this, but now you're not. Now you want to do this. Which is it? You're all over the place. Yep. When that's really not it. I'm really not all over the place. What's happening is that I have a vision, but that's all it is. It's a hallucination out there.
Mhm.
And I'm just going through the mental process of which paths will lead me to where I want to go. But I can't stop walking down them all. So at a certain point, I'm just going to have to spitball some of these things and just start saying them out loud. You need that sounding board, because the coach then will be like, well, hold up, Justin, because you're comparing yourself to a $50 million law firm. Do you think that's going to work for you? Do you have the systems in place? Do you have the capital in place? Do you have do you have what you need to do that? Or, hey, are you sure? And so, so if you don't have a coach, or you don't have, like one of those support groups, you really run the risk of inadvertently freaking everybody the fuck out.
And I know you don't want to use the word earlier. Visionary, I had a hard time calling myself that too, because it's like it makes me, I'm trying to over explain myself and be this wonderful, great thing. But those that know what visionary means sometimes can be very frustrating to people, because you're the one I now gladly say it, because it's like, hey, listen, I do have other ideas. I have to say them. I need someone to say yes or no, or at least talk with them through me. Otherwise, you're all going on a long journey that's going to go down 14 different paths. So
right.
Buckle up one way or the other. But that's where it's like, it's not an ugly word. It's not a glamorous word. It is just a good description of how our mind works. Right? It just is. I haven't come up with a better one. I have negative ones. I haven't come up with one that's good, that sounds like I want to wear a name tag that says it. Right?
Yeah, right.
Visionary's close enough. So, well, hey, Justin, thanks for hanging with me. Obviously, I know we could jam and probably joke at each other the whole time, but I got one thing that I love, that I like to have my guests provide as another little gift wrapped up in a bow for the listeners is, what is one, maybe your biggest mistake, failure, again, skin, knee, something, whether it's personal, professional, that you've learned the most from, or that you think the listeners could benefit from?
I'm going to give you two.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Everybody gets two. All right. First biggest mistake, without a doubt, is my refusal to listen to people. And so a lot of times, like, you have to sift through the noise, right? Mm-hmm. And so you do eventually have to filter out all the negativity and focus on the positivity.
Yeah.
Within reason. Okay. So you really do have to know when to call it quits on that. And so an example of this would be when I said, I'm going to start my own law firm. Mm-hmm. Those closest to me, not my wife, were like, are you stupid? Right? Like, Lindsay, my wife was like, I support you 100%. I agree. I have faith in you. I think you could do this. And I think you'd be awesome at it. My best friend was like, dude, that's awesome. I think you should totally do it. Right. My parents were like, oh, you're crazy. You're going to be poor. Right. But they don't talk like that. It'd be funnier if they did, though. And so you learn very quickly what your filter needs to look like. And you've got to filter out the negativity and focus on your vision and positive thinking. But there are outer limits to that. And so my biggest failure in running the business was, we were at a time where people were telling me we're understaffed, we're overworked. And I refused to acknowledge that, because I was being cheap. And I was being a prick, and I was like, no, you're not. And so what ended up happening was, I lost one paralegal because she went on medical leave and really couldn't. She got sick and just couldn't be a paralegal again. I lost another because she got burnt out. And now we were like 5 lawyers and 2 paralegals. And one of them was like answering the phones at the time. So it was like really one paralegal. She hadn't even really fully been trained yet. And I mean, we came to a screeching halt, and we could practice law for sure, but the background was just a nightmare. Yep. Ultimately, I bear the burden of that mistake, and so had I listened, I would have done some things differently. So you have to do that. The second mistake I think I made was being too cautious and too risk adverse.
Hmm.
So I know a lot of plaintiffs lawyers specifically and entrepreneurs. They love the thrill of like risk. And
Mhm.
I don't find thrill in risk. I don't. I think it's, I don't ride roller coasters anymore. As many of them fall, like you just saw that one guy just fell to his death on a roller coaster, I think in Florida or something like that. Like, so I'm not, and I'm like an injury lawyer, so I see that shit all day long, right? So I don't gamble. I don't like going to the casinos. I used to represent casinos for years. I watched people destroy their lives at the casino when I
Mhm.
represented them, and so I don't like that. And I think one of my better talents has been attracting really great lawyers. So I think if, as I talk about, my biggest, pitfall in the beginning might also trigger sort of where I think I really shine is being able to convince really great lawyers to come work with us. And so because of that, they like that I'm really risk adverse, and I'm comfortable being that way. But I think I missed a lot of opportunity early on, and I've seen several times where I've done it over the years. And a lot of times it comes from a lot of different things. It's like, what if it doesn't work, right? Insecurity or self doubt. And so that would be the second thing is I think I missed some big opportunities early on because I was just playing too cautious.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's learning in that, right? Because I've got learnings on both ends of mine where I went too deep and then I got to undo it, and then I've done the same
Right.
thing, way too short and all that kind of stuff. And what I'm hearing in both of those is the scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset, potentially, right? Where it's again, there's the as a learning as an attorney, right? You're also mitigating risk. That's
Sure.
what you're supposed to help
Right.
do, right? So
Right.
that is what your job is in most cases. But it is the flip of the mindset. You can make big bets without a lot of risk. You can gamble. You gambled a lot. You gambled on yourself. You gamble in every time you hire somebody, but it's calculated. So it's just the framing of what that risk actually is. Um, and so again, and also I talked about someone earlier today, right? Is it an investment we're making or is it an expense? And it's just the difference of like when you're going to hire someone,
Yeah.
what do you coin it as? And most of us, when we're trying, especially when we're midway through, or even just like, shit, do I have the budget for that? Do I have money? What's the cash flow going to look like? Versus, hey, what do I do with that? Like, this is an investment. I'm putting 100 grand over the year on something on someone. What's that going to turn into? And so that's the fun dance that we get to play as business owners, and depending on where we are, because sometimes it's scary, and sometimes you're like, shit, man, this is a great idea. Let's go. Other times you're like,
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a beautiful balance.
I'm better about it today,
Yeah,
but but you're right. And we're in a more abundant time where I have more resources, but I think I would have grown maybe faster, had I not been so risk adverse. But I always say, like that's part of the journey. If I
absolutely.
was confronted with the issues I'm confronted with today, 10 years ago, I would have been ill-equipped to handle those issues.
Yeah.
And
Throw up the
so,
ball.
and I'm sure 10 years from now, whatever I'm going to be confronted with, I don't know what the hell I do with that today. So
Right.
it's all part of this journey. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I will close on this one because it's very pertinent for this, and it was one of my great fraternity brothers. His father would always say whenever he would do something stupid and maybe get arrested during college, he'd be like, "Well, son, looks like you got yourself some FE," and he did talk like that, by the way, not like your parents don't. What's that? It's called some fucking experience.
yeah,
That's what we're getting.
that's it.
All right, on that. Great ramming with you, man. Had an awesome time. I'd love to cross paths with you when I'm getting down to New Orleans next because I think you'd be a riot.
I'd love it. You should call me. I wish you were in town I wish you were in town this week because we're shooting an entire day of podcast at this new English pub in town. We're going to grab the corner and we're just going to spend the whole day there shooting one podcast after the next. I anticipate like just drinking Guinness all day.
Remember, not 2 16s at a time.
No, yeah.
Space them out.
Sip it.
You've grown.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the old me. The new me. I'm not that person anymore. So
You could be challenged to do it. No,
we'll
at any
see.
rate,
We'll see what happens.
have an awesome shoot. I know it'll be a ball. Everyone, that's a wrap for today. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, John. It was great seeing you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.